several controversies surround Genesis 1:1 and its meaning. As I have stated many times, I hold no particular position on origins. I am not a creationist, an evolutionist, a concordantist, or anything else. For the moment, I am staying out of that game. However, that doesn't mean that I don't have an opinion about particular passages that will make everyone unhappy and angry at me. And this passage is no exception. Find out on this episode of Ancient Egypt and the Bible. Creationists, both young Earth and old Earth, and theistic evolutionists are really going to hate what I'm about to say. But the biblical text is the text, and it has its own meaning and context, despite what we might want to believe about its meaning. So, with that out of the way, let's get into the passage. Our first problem when dealing with Genesis 1:1 is going to be its grammar. As good practitioners of the grammatical historical method, it is good practice to try to figure out the grammar before setting on a translation or assessing the meaning. Now, there have been two major proposed grammatical structures for Genesis 1:1. The traditional rendering is that Genesis 1:1 is a complete, independent clause that begins with a prepositional phrase, so that it reads, quote, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." This is how the grammar has been analyzed for over 2,000 years. It doesn't make the rendering of the grammar necessarily correct, but it does have parsimony. But recently, a different grammatical structure for Genesis 1:1 has been proposed, which has been gaining popularity. That proposal is that Genesis 1:1 is part of an introductory subordinate clause, so that the text reads, quote, "When God began to create the heavens and the earth was formless and void, and the Spirit of God moved over the surface of the waters, God said, 'Let there be light,' and there was light," end quote. While I am not a traditionalist and am open to new readings of the biblical texts, I have some concerns with that latter reading that have given me pause to accept it. The first is the grammar itself. Hebrew is a language that tends to deprecate extensive use of subordinate clauses. Moreover, there are introductory subordinate clauses in Hebrew, but they are rare at best. There are two known constructs for introductory subordinate clauses, which involve the use of the subordinate adverb ki and the conjunction va. Neither is used in this case. Moreover, when they are used, there is typically a change in syntax for both of these cases, where the subject-verb-object order is used instead of the verb-subject-object to indicate subordination. Genesis 1:1 uses verb-subject-object syntax that's more typical of independent clauses. So my first concern is that this proposal is using a grammatical construction without strong precedent in ancient Hebrew. One-off grammatical exceptions should always raise concerns of being post hoc rationalizations. Second, ancient translations like the Septuagint that are written in languages that employ heavy use of subordination don't reflect that new proposed reading. Hebrew was still a living language when the Septuagint was translated. So we should see signs of introductory subordinate clauses in the Greek versions of Genesis 1:1, if that was a known reading in ancient Hebrew. But that's not what we find. Third, this proposal strikes me as a disruptive reading. With a disruptive reading, you start with the meaning you want, then translate it in a way that opens the door to the views you like or closes the door to any view you don't like. In this case, the proposal disrupts the conventional understanding without addressing the more nuanced, contextualized readings in such a way that it opens the text to the possibility of old Earth creationism and theistic evolution, but narrows the text to exclude young Earth creationism. So, given the grammatical and historical warrants, the traditional reading seems more likely. So sorry, theistic evolutionists and old Earth creationists will have to find support elsewhere. Now, we have just established the most likely grammatical reading. It's time to try to determine the meaning of Genesis 1:1. There are three commonly suggested meanings for the verse: as a title only for the rest of the book or chapter, as a synopsis of what happened leading up to the events in the chapter, or as an action that is the first in a sequence of events found in chapter 1. It should be noted that the three meanings are mutually exclusive. If the author's intent is for Genesis 1:1 to be only a title, then it cannot also be a synopsis or an action. If it is a synopsis of events leading up to the 6 days of creation, then it cannot be merely a title or a first action, since the synopsis would precede it. And if it is a first action, it would negate the possibility of it being a synopsis and the idea of being merely a title. Now, if Genesis 1:1 is a title or synopsis, this presents no problem for a presumptive existence of a planet Earth prior to the 6 days of creation. So it would not be a problem for theistic evolution or old Earth creationism. In the event that they say it is a synopsis of prior events, the heavenly bodies of day 4 must be interpreted as being made, Hebrew esah, in the same way that the earth was made. The earth was created ex nihilo at some earlier point, but was finished during the days of creation. The issue, however, is more complicated for American young Earth creationism. American young Earth creationists begin their exegesis of Genesis chapter 1 by stating that Genesis 1:1 describes the first action in the series of events. However, this presents an exegetical problem. The verse states that God created the heavens and the earth, and heavens is in the plural. So God created the heavens, not just the heaven of the spirit realm, but also the physical heavens as well. In other words, he also created the planets and stars in verse 1. This is going to be a problem when God creates the stars, moon, and sun in day 4, because American young Earth creationists are going to claim that these astronomical bodies were created ex nihilo on day 4. At this point, some American young Earth creationists will shift gears and claim that Genesis 1:1 was both an action and a title. It was an action in day 1, but changes to a title by day 4. American young Earth creationists have created for themselves a problem, since Hebrew doesn't work that way. So, to sum up, of the possible meanings for Genesis 1:1, it appears that a title or synopsis is the most likely possible meaning. However, deciding which meaning is correct is going to be a matter that is beyond what can be determined by Genesis 1 alone. So, anyway, I hope you found that interesting and you learned something. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time on Ancient Egypt and the Bible.